the cutting off of water, electricity, and fuel and food to 2.3 million people is a war crime. It's collective punishment. It is not distinguishing between the population of Gaza, which was as surprised by the attack last Saturday as Israelis were.
Well, the events of last week have got many of us thinking about the sheer complexity of Arab-Israeli relations, the history, the controversies, the emotions, the cycle of violence and pain and revenge and retribution and radicalisation, and the many dashed hopes for peace. Now, my next guest has spent his career analysing, thinking and writing about these very difficult relations. He's Nathan Thrall, a Jewish-American writer and journalist based in Jerusalem. Just your reaction, a week on, having watched all of this unfold, where's your head at now, Nathan?
I've never felt so much despair over the future of Israel-Palestine. And I must say that I've heard a number of commentators over the last hours and days claim that a distinction is being made by Israel between Hamas and the innocent civilian population of Gaza. And of course, that is the thing that they should be claiming because that is what the laws of war dictate. But that is not the case. It is entirely clear that the innocent civilian population of Gaza is being punished and is not being distinguished from Hamas. The cutting off of water, electricity, and fuel and food to 2.3 million people is a war crime. It's collective punishment. It is not distinguishing between the population of Gaza, which was as surprised by the attack last Saturday as Israelis were. And every government that is not stopping Israel and is not demanding immediately and doing everything in its power to end this illegal collective punishment is complicit in it.
Well, I mean, it doesn't look like that's going to happen because, big Western leaders are very much standing in solidarity with Israel after this horrendous attack. I mean, what do you think that the UN can do? I mean, what do you think international leaders can do to urge restraint from Israel?
I think at the very minimum, they need to be calling for a ceasefire, and they need to demand that there be an end to collective punishment and the deprivation of food, water, electricity, and fuel to 2.3 million people, forcing over 1 million people to flee from their homes and move from northern to southern Gaza. Is another form of transfer of collective punishment. And some of the people who fled were fired on in airstrikes, and according to the Gaza authorities, 70 people died while fleeing from the north to the south. This is a humanitarian disaster on a scale that we have not seen before in Gaza, and it is likely to get much, much worse, and everybody needs to be raising the alarm.
And look, you have a new book out called A Day in the Life of Abed Salama, A Palestine Story. Talk to us about how that narrative chimes with what's happening at the moment.
Yeah. So the story that I tell is about a community that, like Gaza, lives enclosed by a wall. And that community is just 2 miles away from my home in Jerusalem. It's the town of Anata and Shuafat refugee camp. And I tell the story of a father, Abed Salama, whose son, Milad, went on a kindergarten class trip. And on his way on that class trip, the bus was struck by a giant lorry. It flipped over and caught fire. 6 children died. 1 teacher died as well. And the bystanders who were there had to pull these children off of this burning bus and race off in their private cars to the nearest hospital. And what that hospital might be depended on the color of your Palestinian ID. So Palestinians with blue IDs who could enter Jerusalem and the superior hospitals there ran off with children toward Jerusalem. Palestinians with green IDs who could not enter Jerusalem went off to Ramallah Hospital and in other directions. Abed and other parents raced to the scene of this accident. By the time they got there, all of the children had been evacuated. All the children had indeed been evacuated before the first Israeli fire truck had come. And Abed himself had a green ID. He was told his son might be in Jerusalem. He might be at the adjacent military base. He might be in another town nearby, and
Okay.
he didn't know what to do or where to go. He knew that he couldn't enter Jerusalem with his green ID, and so he ran to the Ramallah hospital. And what I do in this book is I tell the story of the Israeli and Palestinian people whose lives collided in this horrific event. And I really try and put the reader into the everyday lives, the lived reality in this horrible 24 hours of all these very different people who live radically different existences right beside one another. And
Mm.
one of the themes that I get into in the book is something that's so relevant today, which is the deep scars and pain and dehumanization that both peoples experience. And when I tell the story, for example, of a Palestinian mother who is a doctor and is on her way to a work assignment with the UN Refugee Agency, UNRWA, when she
Okay.
comes upon the burning bus and she starts to help to rescue children, kindergartners
Wow.
covered in soot.
Well, I mean, Nathan, it sounds like your book, is, just absolutely captures, the kind of horror and the conflicts. And as you say, ordinary people living these incredibly different lives, but cheek by jowl. I mean, you're obviously really steeped in this. You've lived with it. You've written about it. You've written dramatic narratives about it. You've written, you've done a lot of thinking around this. What happens in the end here, Nathan? Where does this go?
Yeah. No matter how this war plays out in the coming days and weeks and months, it will end in the following situation which preceded it. Israel is the sole sovereign between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea. And in that territory, there are an equal number of Jews and Palestinians, 7 million Israeli Jews, 7 million Palestinians. And the vast majority of those Palestinians do not have basic civil rights. Now, that deeply unjust system, the intricacies of that deeply unjust system is the subject matter of my book. It's showing ordinary people struggling through the jaws of this system. And that system, alas, continues to lead to bloodshed. And we will continue to see horrible bloodshed and brutality unless we address these root causes of this
Okay.
conflict. And we don't just attend to it when there is heightened violence or a
Yeah.
war in Gaza.